Okay. So, as Sagarika said, this afternoon I'm talking about kindly speech, Priyavadita, one of the means by which we enliven and keep the Sangha vibrant. Priya means love, affection, and it's a really powerful word that has all the connotation of real and genuine feeling. And Vadita means speech and communication. The Buddhist tradition puts a lot of emphasis on speech, and it encourages us to recognize the power of speech and how it creates our world and the world of those around us. Most of our lives are full of words. Every day, probably every moment of every day, we're bombarded by the written and spoken word. And all of these words are manifestations of states of mind, states of consciousness. And we will have all experienced the effect, the atmosphere that speech creates. So we need to remember that speech is an action, and that actions have consequences. I mean, I can't help but think of anybody who's been in touch with the news this week. We've all seen the effect of speech and the consequences that speech can have. So words are powerful, they have power, they have meaning, and they have an effect. And that is something that we can so easily slip over because of the constancy of which we're engaged with communication. So in our Sangha, we want our speech to be an expression of that which is important to us. We want our speech to be warm, we want it to be friendly, we want it to be positive, and we want it to be kind. Bhante says that kindly speech is speech spoken. Bhante says that kindly speech is the truth spoken with love. Truthfulness is the basis of all skillful communication. It's the basis of all skillful speech. Of course, truthfulness is factual. We need factual accuracy. We need to say what's been said and repeat that in a true and real way. And it needs to be congruent. But this sort of speech, truthful and congruent speech, it's actually not that easy. And it's not that easy because it demands awareness, and it's not easy because we experience the world through a cloud of our own subjective emotion. So when we're speaking the truth, we need to become more and more aware of what's actually behind the truth that we think we're speaking. But of course, truthful speech is so much more than factual accuracy. We are also trying to convey the spirit of what has been said, the spirit of the original. But truthful speech is an important part in the creation of Sangha and the creation of Sangha via the Sangrahavastus. Truthful speech creates trust. It creates a sense of reliability and a sense that the Sangha is something we can rely on. So that the Sangha becomes built on this trust, and we can have the faith, the confidence that a person will respond to us in accordance with the love mode and not the power mode. This is the basis of truthful speech as a Sangrahavastu. With this trust, we also we're developing the sense that within our community, within our Sangha, that our fellow Sangha members will have our best interests at heart, that they, like us, are cultivating metta, warmth and positivity. So this trust involves us sort of getting a sense that we have faith in our practices, and as a consequence of faith in our practices, we can have faith in each other. I did want to tell you something about an experience that I had when I was spoken to with kindly speech. And it was an experience that sort of changed my life. I was fortunate enough to have a meeting with Bhante the day after my brother's funeral. My brother died a few years ago. And the day after his funeral, I was able to have a meeting with Bhante. And I was completely curious about what happened after my brother's funeral when we were all gathering. And people were saying things like, oh, your brother, he's gone to a better place and he's in a better place and all of that sort of thing. And I realized that I couldn't say anything. I was actually speechless. There was nothing that I felt I could say that was real and truthful and helpful in that situation. So I talked about this with Bhante, and Bhante did this. Bhante talked to me, and he asked me questions. He said, well, tell me about your brother. So I talked a little bit about my brother, and I told him about my brother's qualities. I told him a little bit about how he'd led his life. And Bhante said, okay, so Shubhavyuha, from everything you've said, it is very likely that your brother will have a good rebirth. But then he said, but of course, we can never say anything with certainty. I left that meeting, and even now as I'm talking about this to you, I have this tingling sensation, because that felt to me like the first time I'd been spoken to with kindly and truthful speech. And it was truth, not just in the sense of accuracy or something being right or wrong, but it was truth that was in alignment with the nature of reality. And I guess that's what we're really, well, let me just, I want to say that, let me say something else. So that interaction had a profound effect on me, and it's what really engaged my imagination and interest in kindly speech as a means to building Sangha. So I thought about this quite a lot, and I thought, well, what was it that Bhante did? What did he do that made the difference to me? So, well, first of all, he took an interest in me from my side. I didn't even know the question that I was asking. I didn't know that I was asking, what's going to happen to my brother, do you think? I didn't know that's what I was asking, but when he talked about it, when he said about rebirth, I realized, oh, Bhante understood that underneath my question, underneath my discussion with him, there was this question. So he took an interest from me from my side. So he didn't give me pat Buddhist answers like, well, Shubhavyuha, you're an order member and you know all things are impermanent. He spoke with real kindness and interest. But also, he listened deeply and he understood what I was asking. So those elements of taking an interest in somebody from their side, from listening deeply, and taking an interest in what they're asking, these are the sort of foundations on which communication is built in the Sangha, and communication becomes harmonious within the Sangha. But more than that, he spoke the truth. So he wasn't prepared to give me a superficial response, a sort of like, there, never mind, he's gone to heaven response. He was prepared, even knowing what I was asking, he was prepared to speak the truth. And that is what shook me profoundly, that somebody that somebody could do that in that moment, but it was the truth spoken with extreme kindness. So what did I learn from this? So what I learned is that all the time I'm working against the pulls of the world. I'm working against the pulls of superficial engagement, the quick one-line responses, the sort of ways in which we can just sort of flick people off, not take them into account. And I guess I also learned that they're all working against kindness in a superficial way. It's quite easy, isn't it, to sort of be nice and sweet, but real kindness has at its root the truth. And we do this. How do we do this? How do we engage with each other? How do we take each other in? How do we really try and loosen this sort of these bonds of self that keep us trapped in our own world, that stop us from really communicating with each other? Well, we do it as Bhante did, by listening, by asking questions, and by really looking and taking people in. This is something, I was thinking about this when I was writing the talk, and I was thinking about walking the talk. And I know that this is an area that I really have to put effort in. You know, I spend a lot of my day on a small computer screen. And in a way, that little screen becomes my world. So I can come out of the office and go to the dining room, and I can ask somebody how they are. But really, I'm still in my little computer screen. I'm not really taking them in, and I'm not really engaging in a real way. And that's the sort of thing we have to work against in the Sangha. We have to work with and work against, so that our engagement with each other becomes real, it becomes of interest, and it becomes one of curiosity. Because we're always meeting people who are different from us. You know, the Sangha is not a group where we're sort of bound by something of that sort of aligns us in a particular way. We're a vast array of people who are all trying to practice to transcend our self-limited being. And communication with each other is one of the probably most important and profound ways that we get to do that, because we get to meet another's world. We get to feel and see our own reactions to that world, and we have to step beyond that. So our communication is one of always stepping beyond, or I wish it was always, I wish that was true. Our communication is one where we aim to be stepping beyond this small, bound up self and into the world of other. That takes imagination. There are many ways in which we can develop this interest, this curiosity, this ability to look, this ability to listen. And Bhante has clearly given us a whole set of tools in which to do that. One of the major ways in which we can take this level of interest is by rejoicing in one another. So rejoicing in merits is one of these sort of clear ways that we've got to step out of ourselves and step into the world of another. To rejoice in somebody's merits, to really rejoice, you have to have known them, you have to have taken them in, you have to have seen them, and to have seen them deeply. This rejoicing in merits is something that provides encouragement for each other. And there's a great quote from Unification where he says, we need encouragement from our Dharma friends, not just because the ideal is hard, but because friendship, love, and rejoicing are a wonderful way for a moment to step outside this prison of me. So we're freeing ourselves for a while from our obsessive self-centeredness. Rejoicing in someone else is at least a way of reaching out into the world of another in the most positive way, and it creates an atmosphere that is beautiful for everyone. But of course, kindly speech can take many other forms, each of which supports the building of Sangha. None of us is perfect. We will all make mistakes and not live up to our ideals. So speech, acknowledging that, apologizing, making a confession, and developing forgiveness for one another are all manifestations of this kindly speech, this love. For the Sangha to have unity, we need to develop and practice acknowledging our shortcomings and apologize for them. And we need to forgive each other. We need to forgive each other for our shortcomings. As again, to quote Unification, it is such a burden if you expect the Sangha to be perfect. You will make yourself very unhappy. If you think the Sangha or Bhante should be perfect, and you will squander the most wonderful gift of the Sangha simply by us having silly expectations of them. There are, of course, near enemies to kindly speech, and it's something that we all have to look out for. Kindly speech can become sentimentality, it can become superficiality, and, unfortunately, sometimes kindly speech can be a means of manipulation. So we always have to be looking out for the motivation and developing a pure motivation in our speech and communication within the Sangha. So I want to leave us with a couple of questions for our group. Things that you can maybe talk about or things you don't want to talk about. But I did wonder whether it would be worth looking at, thinking of examples where kind words have made a difference to you or somebody else. I think we could also look at what are the strengths in our communication. What particular strengths do we have? And also, what do we need to work on? Thank you.